episode of Millionaires Are Made, the show where we believe you can be a millionaire in all 6 aspects of health. So we do shows on your physical health, your intellectual health, your social health, spiritual health, financial health, and today we're going to focus on mental health. And our topic for today is medicine. This could go a lot of different ways. We've got 3 awesome guests that are come on and give us a little tip on how to improve our mental health with medicine. If you haven't seen Millionaires Are Made, you've been missing out. This is show number 65, I think. It's built on the fundamental belief that every person you meet knows something you don't, and that there's something to be learned from everyone in this big, beautiful world. In the spirit of authenticity and to try to remove as much bias or persuasion, I don't get to meet or know our guests until about a half an hour before the show when we go over the schedule and how the show's going to work. So their life journey, their tips, and their advice are going to come straight from them. This show is going to be, I don't know how it's going to be, but it could go a lot of different ways. I'm super excited. We have awesome guests here. They're going to give us some real knowledge. It's going to be great. Audience, if you're watching this, please, we love your questions and your comments. We ask them live when you post them so we can put our guests on the spot a little bit. So if you have anything that's crossing your mind, feel free to comment on any of our mediums and we'll take care of that and ask it live to them. Shout out. We want to give a little shout out to some of our followers here. We love you guys. Thank you so much. On Facebook, thank you, Spencer Robinson, for following us. On Instagram, Debbie Vilches. You rock. TikTok, Empowered by Nature Wellness. You guys are awesome over there. And on YouTube, Michael McQuarrie. You're great as well. And we also want to take some time for our sponsors here. We've got some awesome sponsors. Our first sponsor here is Elm Law Office. Eric, the attorney at Elm Law, is dedicated to delivering the highest quality legal representation in Colorado. They're the #1 law firm for immigration and family law. Their mission is to be a champion for their clients, providing exceptional service and navigating legal challenges with expertise and compassion. Please check out their link below if you guys need any legal help in Colorado. Our next sponsor is Healing Vocals Artist Management, led by Dr. Mary Anderson, fuses medicine, today's topic, and music to create a global impact. So they heal bodies and uplift souls through medical missions and artist support. Pretty cool, unique nonprofit there to go check out. Our third sponsor is Ben Thinking About Your Health. Ben offers nationwide PPO health insurance with the freedom to choose any doctor you want. It's ideal for healthy individuals and businesses. It's cost-effective, tax-deductible, and it provides top-tier coverage while saving you money. Check out that link below. And The True Leaders, a bi-monthly magazine offering practical guidance, inspiring stories, and in-depth interviews for aspiring and current leaders. Check them out. They have amazing articles there. It's available digitally for free, and you can get it in print on Amazon as well. Check out that link right below. And if you ever need guests for your podcast, we have 4 right here. I'd love to return the favor and be a guest on your podcast. I know that our 3 guests right now are all love to be guests and share their knowledge and help out as well. So feel free to contact us or them. We'll be dropping all their contact info when they come on. And if you want to be a guest, since I know that you've got some knowledge to share, please sign up below. Right now, we're dropping that link. Sign up, come be a guest. It's not hard. You just got to drop a little bit of knowledge and make the world grow a little bit. And if you have something you're struggling through and you're not sure what's going on or you want some answers, let us know. We need topics all the time. So if you want to learn how to improve your mental health medicine, this show's for you. But if you got something else going on, drop a topic. We'll add it in. We'll go out and do all the work, find some guests, and hopefully teach you a little bit about it. And if you love this show, which we know you do, hopefully, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, send stars, whatever it is on whatever medium you're watching. And if you want something a little more intimate, one-on-one, I spend all day, every day meeting with people smarter than me and learning from them. And then I try to give that back. So I do offer free coaching. If you want to grow with me and learn one-on-one, I'm dropping that link now. Sign up for a free coaching session. It should be really fun. Hopefully, we will find out. Without further ado, the time has come to start talking about mental health and medicine. We're going to bring our first guest named Dawn out here. Hey, Dawn, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be here. Got to pronounce. I appreciate the opportunity.
Sounds like you're ready. We'll start off with an easy question. Dawn, who are you?
Yeah, I am a 42-year husband, married 42 years, got 3 kids, all
Dang.
millennials, got 4 grandkids that are just a joy. We just spent 10 days out in Arizona watching the 4-year-old, the youngest. Um, a
Nice.
27-year Air Force veteran, 9-year corporate.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. America was worth it. And now I'm an entrepreneur for 7 years. I really love working with people on career transition and leadership, and love to camp and hike and bird watch. That covers me pretty
Camp,
good.
hike, and bird watch. Okay.
And bird
What's
watch.
the coolest bird you've ever seen? Sorry, that's a question I didn't tell you about.
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going to go with the Kiskadee down on the Rio Grande River. Just a beautiful bird along the water. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Don, let's get into that nitty gritty. Super
Yeah.
curious how this is going to go. Tell me, if I wanted to improve my mental health with medicine, what simple piece of advice would you give me?
The advice is team together with your medical staff. And it sounds like such an easy one. It's like, you got to be kidding, right? But as I work with military, particularly on their career transition, and I've been reading a lot with Brene Brown lately on Daring Greatly. When we're vulnerable with our medical staff, what gets in the way is our shame and our guilt and our culture, right? Think about the
Ooh.
military. Anytime that you're going to say anything to your doc about a physical pain or a mental pain, that could have ramifications for you getting put on a waiver, and you can't fulfill your military duty. You may get kicked out of the service. So there's a natural tendency, especially in the mental health, to not tell the doctor anything. The doctors will still prescribe something, but when they get it and they start taking it, if they don't agree that this is the right medicine, they'll throw it away and not say anything. So they're literally getting no value out of it, and they struggle through the mental health pain. And my son introduced me to a book called The Invisible Storm with Jason Kander, which gave me a great view of the challenges coming back and getting mental health treatment through the VA. Not just getting the appointment, but it's the sensitivity, it's the understanding. It took him several doctors before he finally got a doctor who could really help him. So I'm really all about that teaming together. A simple example here. This is not mental health, but similar is I got sciatic nerve problem in one leg. I went to the doc and she gave me 300 milligrams of gabapentin. So I took it one night and I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and I could barely walk. I was so drugged. I was like, this isn't going to work. So I called her back up and I said, we need to talk about this. She goes, well, I'll give you 600 milligrams. I said, ma'am, if I
Oh,
can't
boy.
walk now, I won't be able to wake up. So we
Maybe
backed
she
off
just
to
wants you to
100.
sleep. Sleep
Yeah.
and forget everything the whole night.
So we backed off to 100, and it's starting to work pretty good. So I'm giving that feedback, talking to her about the situation, but you got to take that to the mental health realm and have that conversation so that you can get the right treatment, the right medicine.
That's huge. So in my life, my father has a lot of illnesses, and I know that he gets so frustrated when the doctor, like the spleen doctor and the liver doctor, and they're all prescribing things, and then he's like, I have this huge concoction, and so he's basically doing that. He's building his team. He's like, can you guys like talk to each other before you send me all this stuff? Like, and so yeah, I mean, I think he's realizing now, which sucks. He's older. He's like 70, and he's not able to even like it took that long to kind of realize that you got to work on it, because we all have been built our lives just to trust doctors. Whatever this doctor says, we're good. We're good. But yeah, I think that's a huge piece of advice. Get the team together and.
Yeah, I spent time last month on my own with Google going through what are the impacts of all these different drugs and how do they interact with each other and which one causes these symptoms. And then I went to the doc and I talked to her about all those different pieces. And we got now we're on the same wavelength for treatment. Yeah. I think you're
It's
exactly
almost
right.
like you have to learn it all yourself. Yeah, it's like you have to learn it yourself and kind of know what's going on as much as the doctor does, almost.
In the military, they told us you are your best personnel officer to manage your record, manage your career. And I think it's the same thing on your medical. You are your best advocate for for your physical and mental health. Don't give it to somebody else. I think you're right.
I love it. I love it. Hey, Don, where on your life journey did you learn this? You told us a little bit about your background, but tell us, where did this tip come from?
it really came through the 27 years of service and watching how people interrelated with their medical teams. And they would just go and expect the doc to be able to figure things out. And it's a back and forth, right? It's kind of funny. One time on the birth of our second son, we walked in, it was he was 2 weeks early. Our doc wasn't there. So this other doc came in, and my wife asked him a question. Dr. Reinert, I still remember the name. He goes, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm going to find out. And my wife talked to some people, and they said, your doc doesn't know everything? And my wife says, well, no, I want him to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't know that, but I'm going to get the answer. And he came back before the end of the day, and he had an answer. And he had researched it. And I think that openness, that teaming together, example after example, that's just a simple one. But as a squadron commander, group commander, I saw people withholding information and not getting the treatment they're looking for, and then being upset about it. So it just, I see it time and time again, especially now when I'm doing career transition coaching with people who are getting out of the service or trying to go between the second and third job. They're just hiding a lot of information, and they're having to deal with that mental pain, the mental challenge, and mental health is such an issue right now. If we can't open up, this book, Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, is just blowing my mind open. I listen for about 15, 20 minutes every morning working out. And
repeat that book again.
Daring Greatly. She's a PhD specialist out of Houston studying vulnerability, and she's really gotten into shame and guilt and why we are not vulnerable. It's powerful, but it so ties right into what we're talking about today.
That's awesome. I'll have to go read it. Thank you so much, Don. We're going to move on to our next guest, Samir. Great advice. Hey, Samir, can you tell me who you are?
My name is Samir Dasani. I'm a health coach focusing on mental health based out of South Africa. I've also had a career working in human rights. So I worked 20 years with groups like Amnesty International and so on. And I'm also finishing up a PhD in anthropology here in South Africa.
Very cool. So you've done a lot. All right. Well, Samir, I only need one piece of advice, even though we could talk for 17 hours. If I wanted to improve my mental health with medicine, what piece of advice would you give me?
I mean, the short story is avoid the medicine. So when we look at the research, there are really two things. When we look at the most prescribed drugs, we have two categories of drugs, right, for mental illness: SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and TCAs, which is tricyclic antidepressants. And what we find is that there are actually things that are not related to pills that will actually do better for mental health. The two that come to mind are, number one, going on a very high fat, low carb diet. Ketogenic diet has been shown to have better results than a lot of these things. By the way, these drugs were developed to help not with depression, but with people who have epilepsy, right? And the ketogenic diet was also developed to help people who have epilepsy. So you can use a ketogenic diet to get many of the same things. Number two is you can use exercise. Exercise has been shown to be as effective or more effective than both of these classes of drugs in a number of studies. And then I'm just about to write an article, I'm doing some research for it now, on the side effects related with these drugs. So not everyone gets a side effect, but the number of people who get side effects from these drugs is much higher than anyone would think. Like it depends on the specific study, but I see numbers like 20, 25%. Compare that with the number needed to treat. So number needed to treat is how we calculate how many people have to take the drug in order to get a benefit, right? So when you say, okay, maybe 20 people in it, if it's a very good drug, and these are not, most of them are not super good drugs, then the NNT may be 20. So that means 20 people have to take it for one person to get benefit. So that means, say 5% of people are getting benefit, whereas 20% of people are getting harm. And that's if it's good. The NNTs on most of these things is much higher, 60, 70, 80. So when you weigh the cost-benefit analysis, you just got to keep that in mind. And one of the side effects with these antidepressants, for example, is depression. And it's a very well-documented side effect. So you're taking an SSRI drug to help with your depression. And one of the side effects that's going to come, and in fact, it comes sooner or later in almost all cases, is that you actually get more depressed. So these are things to be aware of and to look for alternatives to.
On that note, so you didn't talk too much about this, but lately I think there's a couple books out on some science about, you said take a drug to treat antidepressant makes you more depressed. And they're starting to realize therapy is almost doing that too. As you're talking more about being depressed, it just makes you stay in your cycle of being depressed. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big mixed bag, and I don't want to say talk therapy. There are people who trash talk therapy. I'm not in that camp. But what I will say, and why I prefer coaching to therapy, is that when we're coaching, we're actually talking about, okay, how are you going to do what? So fine, you told me about your trauma. That's good to know, or I'm going through my trauma. That's important. What am I actually going to do? Either physically, trauma, the brain is not disconnected from the body, and trauma lives in the body as well as in the brain. So there are things we can do, again, getting back to exercise, but also things like TRE, trauma reducing or trauma relieving exercises. I may get the acronym wrong, but it's basically like controlled shaking that can be very effective. There are these tapping exercises that are also very popular these days. So I'm not saying all of these things work for everybody, but I'm just saying, coming to action is super important. And when I look at the psychiatric field and the psychological field, I don't see people, the only action that they're taking is the drugs. And just talking about your trauma is not necessarily taking action to relieve that trauma. And I know your next guest is going to talk a little bit about shamanistic traditions and how the role of sort of relieving trauma in that, which I'm super interested to listen to. But the point is, whether it's these ancient shamanistic traditions or something else, there are things we all can do in the now, even if it's just getting to the gym more, that will help us to relieve that trauma. And I want my clients to do that. If my clients want to use talk therapy as a tool, that's fine, but it's one of several tools. And ideally we get to action to actually deal with those traumas, to actually improve mental health. And cleaning up the diet is a big part of it, man. I'm not going to lie. If we have people who are self-medicating, even self-medicating with things that might be good under other circumstances, like I think there may be a role for marijuana, there may be a role for ketamine, there may be a role for some of these other drugs. I'm not super, I don't have a lot of expertise on those subjects, but I've read some studies which indicate that actually you can do a lot with those drugs, but doing it on your own is probably not a great idea. Maybe some people can do it. I don't want to trash it completely. But self-medicating, for example, with alcohol is definitely not a good idea. So we can say, look, if we can move away from self-medicating and towards working with some kind of having a strategy, at least, you can work with me or another mental health coach, or you can work with someone else, doesn't matter. But you have to at least have a strategy, and that strategy has to be yours, and you have to be moving from point A to point B. And what I feel too often in the psychiatric profession is that we're just going around in circles. And you hear people, in fact, one of my first clients, she had been in therapy since she was 12, and I was talking to her when she was close to 30. And she was like, at the end of 6 weeks with me, she was like, this is the first time I actually feel like I feel different after the 6 weeks of working with someone than I did going in. Like, otherwise I felt exactly the same, which is tragic. I think that I think the psychiatric system is really jerking people around and not giving them the truth. There's too much. I'm allowed to swear on this show, right? It's too much.
Oh,
too much bullshit.
Fuck yeah.
Okay, it's too much bullshit and not enough like just getting shit done.
Awesome. Hey, Samir, thank you so much. I can't wait to talk to you again in the round robin. But we are going to move on to our next guest, Craig. Thank you again, Samir. Hey, Craig.
Hey, Austin.
Who are you?
Who am I? My name is Craig Sakowski. I'm an author, speaker, and a shaman for myself. I've come to a lot of realizations in my life, and what I've realized is I really didn't know a lot about anything. And I'm glad about the mental health part, because I really believe I spent tens of thousands of hours by myself while I was going through cancer procedures and bunch of surgeries and stuff, and what I've been able to do is alchemize my life into relieving my emotional stress from my past experiences and traumas, and to develop a different story for myself. That's me.
We just got a comment saying that you're the mafia. Trust me. Hey, Craig, though, I want to ask you a quick question. If I wanted to improve my mental health with medicine, what piece of advice would you give me?
So I would just say, based off my experience, I've been through the mental health, from psychiatrist to psychologist to myself. And what I've done is I've become a shaman for myself. And people say that's kind of arrogant, but all a shaman is somebody that alchemizes. And I've been able to alchemize my life into something that's super for me. Like I tell people, I'm the best at what I do in my world. And people like, what exactly is that? And I was like, get out of this shit here, man. We call it stinking thinking for a reason. So I've been able to do that. Yeah, I want to share with the world how you can. Everybody's different. Everybody's got a different strategy, but my quirkiness is something that I rely on when I deal with people, because what I touch on is traumatic shit in people's lives. I talk to maybe 100 people. I probably only coach one, simply because the other 99 aren't really there yet, and I don't want to waste their time and energy.
I hear that. Where on your life journey did you learn this tip?
So I've had some great experiences. I've been able to live in the bush of Jamaica, no electricity, no water, see how tough I can be. I've been able to live in Mexico, which I just moved back to last night. I used to live in Hawaii.
Nice.
Yeah, I used to live in Hawaii. I've seen a lot of things in business. I've been bankrupt, broke, beat up, spit at, anything you can be as an entrepreneur. And I use all of these experiences to help me. What I realized was we all need a little help, right? External help, whatever that might be. And what I really do for myself is just become myself and stop. And everybody wants to, for the most part, have all of these outside influences and thoughts and all of that, when you can just stop whatever it is that you're doing and sit in yourself. It's called the temple for a reason, right? It's the only real estate we can own. And that's my message. That's my mission in this world, is to have people live in a beautiful mansion instead of ghetto.
I love it, Craig. All right, well, we're going to move on to our next part of the show, where we bring Samir and Don back out. Right on. All right, guys. We'll start with Don's tip. Don, can you quickly refresh what your tip was?
You bet. It was really make sure that you are open and communicating clearly with your medical team. And it should be a team, right? What is the challenges? What's the frustrations? What's the problems? What's the symptoms? And then being open as they do treatment, how that is working, how it's resolving it. And if it's not, make sure that you're back talking to them. So it's truly teaming together with your medical team to make sure you're getting the right treatment. You got to be your own medical team. You got a seat at the table.
All right, Samir, what are your thoughts on that tip?
100%, man. You are your own medical team. The people around you, and we feel so dicked over by the system, especially in the US. People they feel like the doctor's saying this, so I got to do that. No, the doctor's saying that, so understand what they're saying. And why are they saying that? And why is it difficult for you? So I think communication is key. And I think John's really hit the nail on the head. So 100% for me.
Craig, what are your thoughts on Don's tip?
I agree to a certain level. Like, I've been a part of this medical system, and what I've realized is the front doesn't know what the back is talking about. I've had many procedures and surgeries as a 9/11 respondent to the World Trade Center that has literally tried to kill me a dozen times. And the industry that we talk about, and Emory is one of the best medical industries in the planet, pretty much, from what I've been told. And I've just ran into so many obstacles. So I'll understand the team part, but for me, it's all about here for ourselves.
Samir, can you quickly refresh what your tip was for us?
Yeah, it was. I tried to sneak in too. So use ketogenic diets and or exercise before you hit the standard pharmaceutical drugs. That's the main tip.
All right, Craig, what are your thoughts on that tip?
100%. Ever since I started having more protein and less carbs in my life, a lot of things have changed.
I agree with that too. Protein is everything. Don, what are your thoughts on Samir's tip?
100% agree. I am. I've had a lot of back problems over the years, and working in chiropractic and working other things. But lately, I've gotten into yoga, and just stretching it in different ways. And boy, my pain has gone way down, and my chiropractic need has gone way down. So I think there's so much stuff you can do. I get up still at 5 o'clock every morning and work out for an hour, hour and a half, and I'm watching what I eat very closely with my Fitbit, tracking all my food, macros, micros. So I think he's exactly right. You can do a lot by yourself. You get smart.
And diet leads to mental health. So interesting. Craig, can you refresh what your tip is for us?
Yeah, we have to spend time in our temple. It's the only real estate that we can own. And once we move from the emotional attachments to the past circumstances and environments that we've been through, we can see life a lot clearer.
Awesome. Samir, what are your thoughts on that tip?
Yeah, good. I mean, my only friendly amendment, as we would say, is the whole. It's not just this that's the temple. The whole thing's the temple. So what I would say is, you can do a lot in the head, but sometimes we got to get out of our head and just feel whatever that, sometimes the emotional, sometimes the trauma, sometimes the blockage is in our gut. Sometimes it's in our heart. Sometimes it's other places, and we got to be able to communicate with those places to really do it. But definitely the hard work is work that we have to do internally. There's no question about that. That's 100% right.
So how do you know where head versus gut versus where? How do you know that, Samir? How can you find out?
Yeah, man, you just gotta. It's in the beginning, like when one is just beginning this journey, I can understand how you could even ask that question. But for those of us who walk this path, you sit down for a second and you know where the pain was, or you experience something, you meet with a certain healer or a certain trauma, and you sort of feel your gut unwind. And it's related to, in my particular case, it's related to a trauma that happened when I was 8 years old, when my house burned down in a suburb in Northern Virginia, in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. Yeah. So it's my particular story. And for me, the blocker wasn't in the head. For me, the blocker, I was too much in my head. The blockers were really that I wasn't letting my body go through the emotional trauma that it had to deal with from something that happened 30 or 40 years ago in the 1980s, right? So anyway, so I'm just giving my personal example as one of many. But all of us who've walked this path, at a certain point, you just know, like there's no answer to how. You just know that there was something that was blocking you. And I can just say for myself, because I am a very intellectual person and I sort of pride myself on, being able to read all the academic studies and so on. Sometimes your pride is not where you're going to make progress. It's in other places. It's in learning how to be a more emotional, for me as a man also, and someone who's been hiding my emotions for a big part of my life, learning how to actually sit with them and be uncomfortable. Can you actually be vulnerable? Can you be uncomfortable? Can you be in a place that you don't want to be and be okay with that? Can you be, seeing a relationship end or whatever it may be, having a fight with your parents, having a fight with your children, whatever it may be. Sometimes there are things that are beyond your control. And as a man, my instinct was always to intellectually try and solve all those problems. And sometimes they're just not problems I can solve. And I have to be okay with that. Is that making sense?
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. Yeah. All right, I've got a question for you specifically, Don. We have a comment from the audience that says, mindset is your medicine. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think you're spot on. And I think that's where Craig's coming from, right? If you're, we got so much stuff in our head, the stinking thinking. And Darren Hardy, I follow him daily, he talks about the mind is there to protect you, right? Go back years and years, the fight or flight sense, right? You start to get the spidey sense that there's danger around the corner. It's your body, your mind telling you there's danger. So when you talk about figuring out your gut, like you were just talking with Samir, it's your body starts telling you that. So being in touch with your mind is so important, and we have to do that. But sometimes we need extra help, like Craig is talking about. We need a coach to ask us those right questions. I had a coach ask me a question one time. I thought it'd be a 15-minute answer. It took me an hour and a half typing it out as I was walking, because it just kept bringing up more and more and more things. I mean, think about the people that went through combat. They lost people next to them, right? They have the survivor's guilt and all of that stuff. You need somebody to help you go through that, or it will stop you. Guilt and shame, ego, pride, all of those things get in our way, but they're there to protect us, but we just don't know how to deal with them. We need to learn that. And no, I did not fly aircraft. That was another question. I was a civil engineer.
No,
I
it did not.
I built the runways and everything else so they could launch and fly the airplanes
In the military.
in the military. 27 years. All around.
Very cool. All right, guys. We are at our last little bit here. Let's come up with our daily challenge. So it's a task that has to take less than 5 minutes a day. It has to cost $0. So it's available to everyone in the world from Kamchatka down to Bolivia. Ideas, thoughts?
I got one, and this is I've been working on with some other people, but ask yourself 3 questions. All it takes is a pen and a piece of paper. What went right? What went wrong? What can I do differently? And I think it applies to all 3 of us. What went right in my mental health today? What didn't go right? What can I do differently? And when you start taking action, you will start changing things.
I like that. That's simple. It makes you think. Samir, what do you think about that?
I love it. I'm into it. I mean, I was going to say, even something less structured, like just trying to focus on the breath for 5 minutes a day would be a fantastic entry point as well. But I like it. Some journaling with some guided journaling sounds great. Sounds great to me.
Craig, how do you feel about that?
100%. Take a piece of paper, right? Put a line down the middle. Pros and cons of your life. Put all the pros down. Put all the cons down. Then you cut the paper in half. Take the cons and you burn them.
I like it. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's take all these together then. Let's write down the 3 questions, right? And then we'll take like 5 deep. Let's do 5 deep breaths first, right? Kind of center yourself and get ready. And then let's write down those 3 questions. And then I say we burn. I say we burn the what went wrong. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, part of me is a fire safety person, so I just say maybe just you don't have to burn them. Maybe you can throw them away, but yeah, it's fine. I mean, I think also, like in all seriousness, I think there's a value to letting go of the negative. So write it down. Let it go in some way that's ceremonial to you. So in some ways it's like, this is what I'm to use a metaphor, this is what I'm sort of divorcing myself from today. I'm committing not to do these things again, right? So I think it's part of also how we transform, is to understand the parts of our personality that maybe we want to improve, or that we want to be less attached to, or whatever it may be, and be willing to sort of let those go in some symbolic way. If you have access to a safe fire, by all means burn them, but you could just throw them away too.
Yep.
Burn or throw away, either way. All right. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, we did our task. That is officially our daily challenge. So thank you all so much. And we're going to wrap up the show. Thank you guys for coming out. What a great show. Great insight. So happy to have you guys. We did have a comment that said smoke cannabis if you feel down. We didn't even get into plant medicines, which I thought we might. So that's interesting. We'll save that for another episode, though. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to wrap up the show here real quick. And you, audience, thank you so much for coming in and watching. What an awesome episode. I hope you guys learned a lot about mental health and medicine in 3 different viewpoints. Super cool, super fun. Get a team with your medical, team up your medical team if you're having medical issues. Diet and exercise, as well as focusing on yourself and your own temple. I do have one last thing. This episode is dedicated to a good friend of mine. I'm actually wearing his t-shirt, Jose O'Gara, who actually took his own life with bad mental health a few years ago. So shout out to Jose. And with that, we're going to end this.